Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to you all. Welcome to you, particularly Jason. Nice to have you here, and really nice to have Simone and Darcy and Bailey, and the third son, Michael. Curtis. It's close. We couldn't be here today, but it's great to have you all here. So please, as soon as there's a fact check, we need to deal. Hand up, please, and give me the real story straight up. So we want to get to the bottom of all of this. Jason, give us the basics.
Thanks, Peter. So married 30 years this year, to Simone, and I think 30 years, I did a quick look, I think it's Pearl, which talks about wisdom. So I'm not sure who's wiser, Simone or I, but I'm sure she would say she is. But also with three beautiful boys, we moved to Queensland in 2004. As a young fellow, I grew up in country Victoria, and a place called Harkaway, if anybody knows Victoria very well, it's sort of up the top of Berwick, and it was a small town. So the school I went to had about 25 kids in it, so it was a small school. Early memories, as mum was very young, so I had a young mum as a boy, so she was about 17 when she had me, and had a sister and a father, and I think that was sort of the earliest stages. Then a few things, like everybody's journey, a few things moved for us, and we might explore that as we go along, Peter.
Okay, so we want to hear about the golf. That's why everybody's here. Sister Mel's pretty keen too, so that's fantastic. But let's talk about faith, because you're a man of great passion, you're a man of great drive and resilience, but you're also a man of a really deep faith. Tell us about how that came about.
Yeah, it's a great question. Probably the age of 14, there was one of those moments in life when things had changed for me, my family, and there was a moment, I might explore that with us later on, but I learned at the age of 14, the father I thought who was my father wasn't my father. And it was one of those moments that was interesting. You can imagine a 14-year-old boy sitting there and going, think your dad's your dad, and he's not your dad. So there was a story that led to that as well, which we might explore. And I remember this point in my life where you go, as a 14-year-old, if the Lord was speaking to you, it was a sense of, at that moment in time, where you almost feel a bit of almost separation. You're almost looking at yourself, and I thought, this is interesting. And the message was responsibility and gratitude. And I remember going to a church in Bentley and standing at the front of the church and saying, hopefully guide me the way. That was sort of a start, but I wasn't baptised a Catholic, and that started later on, and I can maybe explore that with you if you wanted to for a second, but I did become a Catholic later on. As you imagine, a 14-year-old boy, there was an impact there, but there was a story, and the narrative continued. I did continue I prayed. I was always of faith, always had a strong belief in something greater than myself. But it was actually St Joseph's at Corinda where a moment in time changed for me. It was an interesting time. It was.
So how long ago was that?
I'm going to say 2014, somewhere around there, Peter. It was 2014, and our oldest boy Bailey, who's here, was doing, I think it's called your Holy Communion. He was doing that, and this beautiful boy, the two other rat bags beside us, and, they were being noisy, Darcy and, they were back there, and Simone, and we're trying to keep them under control. And I'm sure there's everybody in the room's, gone through this story, and these boys and Bailey's going up the front, and I said, off you go. And he said, are you going to come with me? And I said, oh, no chance. I said, he's going up to do communion. I said, I can't go up the front. And he said, why not? And I said, I've never been baptised. And he looked at me and he said, Dad, I think it'll be good for you. So here I am, I've got this young fella who's giving me this message, and I'm there and I'm thinking, how does this thing even work? I'm married, my wife is a Catholic, and we were talking to our Grace before, her story, she grew up in Victoria as well, but went to Mandeville. So Simone, my wife, has a real Catholic, heritage and history. It was all a bit new to me. So I thought I'd find the somebody who looked like they knew what they were doing in the church. And at that time I was looking around, I thought there was this lady who had a badge on and looked quite important to me. And I thought, who's this? This lady looks like it is, that's Sister Kate O'Brien. So Sister Kate O'Brien is there, and I sort of walk up to her and I introduce myself. I said, "Hello, Sister, I'm Jason." And I said, "How do you join this club?" It was sort of I thought there might be some sort of donation. I wasn't quite sure how you go about this. And she said to me, she, in a beautiful way, she looked at me and said, "We've got a program called the RCIA program." She said, "I think you should maybe come along and do this." And it was a magnificent experience. I spent, I think 3 months. I spoke with Sister and another group of Catholics, and was lucky enough. I was baptised by Father Tim Harris, and
now Bishop Tim,
now Bishop Tim. Yep. And that was sort of the story and the journey of. I think I was close to 40 at the time. Might have been maybe around that age. 36. There we go. I've just got the adjudication at the front there, which is magnificent. You wanted the facts to be right.
I want the facts.
We've got them front and centre. So, and a magnificent story, and really, and Sister Kate, as a sister, there's something that's so special about giving. And I thought, well, and there's plenty of stories around that we could explore too. But for me, it led a journey to where I am today as CEO of Southern Cross Care Queensland. As a Knight of the Southern Cross as well, I hold that as something very close to me, and I've had a great journey, I suppose, in with other Catholic entities. Something that was close to Sister Kate, St Vincent's Health Australia and St Vincent's Care Services. So there's wonderful people in this room who have been involved there. So I feel very blessed to have served the special way that the Catholics go about care. There's something, really unique about the way that Catholics at our best do it really, really well and better than anybody else. So I think that's in education and in health.
Okay, all right, that's enough of that. Golf. But I importantly asked that because this wasn't just about you playing golf. There was so much formation and so much support that you received at a difficult time in your life through golf.
Yes. Yeah, well, that's true, Peter. And golf was sort of a blessing for me, I suppose, as I mentioned, the 14-year-old. And we did it tough, I think it'd be fair to say. You can imagine this 17-year-old mum. There was times when things weren't perfect. I don't know if anybody in this room's watched Boy Swallows the Universe. If you've ever seen that show, it looked like that at one stage for those who have seen it. It was pretty rough. And I won't get caught in that, but there was probably a period of 4 years there when it was pretty unsettling. And I sort of was introduced to golf as a 14-year-old, same time I find out I don't know who my father is. And I find this game called golf, and it became so special to me. But the thing I loved about golf really was that you were amongst good people. It was a game of integrity. It was honesty. The more you practice, the better you got. Like anything, if you're at school, the harder you work at anything, you get better. And golf was definitely that for me. And I suppose I was lucky enough. There was a message, I suppose, in my first competition I played at the Royal Brighton Public Golf Course. Of all things, I played in an event there. I had a good score. I think it was, if anybody understands Stapleford points, I had 52 points, but I also had a hole in one, and it was my first event.
Yeah, can we fact check any of that at all? It's okay. Right.
Still got a little trophy at home somewhere that's from about 1983 or 4 or something like that. So it was good. It was a good start, and golf. I found there was a freedom in the game. There was ability to get better. But there were just beautiful people around too. Golf clubs are pretty special places, like any community club where sport is played.
But they embraced you, didn't they, that club?
Well, the beautiful people, they put your arms around you, good people.
Yeah.
And I was, very blessed. Because coming out of a tech school, I ended up at Aspendale Tech, of all things, and the faith story continues. I started life, my first job was an apprentice plumber. And people say, how did you become an apprentice plumber to a golf professional? So you can imagine this 14-year-old boy, I've got my handicap through that period down to probably 2 or 3. I'm not bad. I played, some schoolboy events. I was reasonably okay. But I didn't know much about golf and a career in golf. I had no clue. And I was in a place called Kew, and you imagine I'm a first-year apprentice, and I'm digging a hole away, and I'm digging this hole, and this little doctor comes down the hill, and he wanders down, and he says, "What are you doing down there?" And I said, "We are," maybe I wouldn't use any expletives, but there were probably moments there I said, "We're digging a storm water drain." And the reason we were doing that was to stop his doctor's surgery from flooding. And he said to me at the time, he said, "There's one thing in life you must do." He said, "If you can do anything in life," he said, you must do what you love." And I was like, wow, okay, that's fair. He said, "What do you love?" And I said, I love playing golf. He said, "Well, you should do this. This is important for you." And I said, okay. And I had no idea how this was all going to work out, but the night I got home, I got home that night, overalls, mud, clay all over you. I got a phone call, and I got a phone call from a professional to go and become what they call a trainee professional. So I started that journey, and I started at Royal Melbourne Golf Club, so I was lucky enough to be there, and then went across to a wonderful golf club called the Victoria Golf Club, and it was an amazing place, and I suppose that golf club was so special to me still today. People like Peter Thompson was a member there, and others. So
5 British Opens.
5 British Opens. Doug Backley, who I got time to spend time with people like that, and I suppose that was an amazing place because of Brian Simpson, who was my boss at the time. He's a bit like a Charlie Earp, for those who know Charlie in Queensland. He's a legend. But good people in golf look after young people, and they get the best out of us.
We spoke about your resilience and your passion, but that must have been tested when you had to coach Simone's mum.
That's a good one, Peter. So another... It's a true story, and so this is interesting. Being a typical enthusiast that I am, Brian wasn't able to coach Jan that day, Simone's beautiful mum, and said, "Jason, can you coach Jan?" I said, "Sure, no problems at all." So I got to meet Simone's mum, and I somehow had a little wink in the eye, the opportunist, you might say, that I noticed this pretty girl in a school uniform that was a Loretto uniform, and I said to Jan, I said, "Any chance I could come home for dinner?" And she said to me, "I think that's not a bad idea." And I obviously met Simone, and that was again the blessing of golf and the journey that we all take. And I think there's times in life. I was saying before to the Arch, if we're sensitive and awake to the beautifulness of life, good things happen. But you've got to be awake and you've got to be sensitive to it. And there was always, for me, that sensitivity to something greater.
Okay. All right, a quick fact check. Holes in one?
6. 6.
You sure?
Yeah.
It's very good.
6. Yeah. It's look, it's luck. It's pure luck. Pure luck.
That's not what you told me before.
It's a, I say that sometimes the harder you practice, the luckier you get. I think, there's a famous golfer who said that. I think it was Gary Player or Ben Hogan, one of them. But there's everything in life, I think, saying to the Arch before, it's, if you have gratitude and this sense of nothing owes you anything, but the more you can put back into something, the more you get back. It's a really interesting thing that I think we're so blessed in this country alone just to think that what we have, and I have great gratitude for golf, family, my work, my friends and everything I have. There's a great love of what it is. And I think that's, maybe through golf, the game of golf has taught me that, and maybe that's why I've had 6 hole-in-ones. I don't know if any more to come, but it's you meet people who sometimes never had one. It's they can play their whole life and never. Never get one. So,
Can we talk a little bit about the search for your dad?
yeah, that's a good question. So not knowing my biological father, again on the golf course, I had the honour, I coached a lot, and I was okay at coaching, you might say. I was lucky enough to be voted in the top 50 coaches in Australia a number of years. I taught a lot of different people, and two of the wonderful people I taught was a fellow called Professor David Healy and another obstetrician called Chris Pappas out of Melbourne. And they looked after Simone, and Simone was pregnant at the time with Bailey, and they asked me this silly question. They said, tell us about your parents, Jason. And I said, oh, well, that's a bit of a sketchy question. I'm not quite sure I know how to answer that one. I said, I know my mum and I know my dad, but all I know about my dad is he was born in Birmingham, England, and I don't know much about him. And he is a bit of a mystery. And they said, well, to be fair to Simone, you should find him. Oh, crikeys, how do you go about finding a C.D. Turner? So I knew it was Clive Dennis Turner, born in Birmingham, England, serviceman, 20 years. That was on the birth certificate. I got my mum's certificate, New Zealand, 17, da-da-da. So I can piece that together. So I got a C.D. Turner. So I thought, well, I arrived home, of all things, this day after talking to both Chris and David, and I was all aflamed, you might say, to find my father. Simone was telling me to calm down, but I was like, I had the white pages out at that stage, and I'm going through all the white pages.
So again, how long ago was this?
This is 26 years ago, okay. 27 years ago. 27 years ago. So the white pages were real. Yep. And going through that, I can see Turner, and I've gone through every C.D. Turner or anything that looked like I made half a dozen calls, might have been more. The last call, R.E. and C.D. Turner. And this lady answers the phone. And quick water.
You want something stronger?
Yeah, it'd be good. I said to the arch, I should have a glass of wine. But this lady answered the phone and she said, it's Rosemary here. I said, Rosemary, I said, does Clive Dennis Turner live there? And she said to me, yes, he does. I said, is this the Clive Dennis Turner born in Birmingham, England? And she said, yes, this is correct. And silly enough, I said, his name's on my birth certificate. It was a drop the mic moment. It was one of those moments where the microphone was dropped and you thought, oh goodness, what have I said? Simone's kicking me, I think, and saying, what have you done? And she goes silent. And she said, what do you want? And I said, nothing. I said, no, I'm not here for anything. Time is time. You know, time goes. I was a 31-year-old. And I said, there's no, nothing. I just want to know that he's okay. And she said, yes, he's okay. And we went on a bit further. She said, what do you do? And I said, I'm a golf professional. And she said, whereabouts? And I told her where I was. And she went silent. She said, your business card is sitting in my son's bedroom. And I said, my business card? And I went, oh my God. I said, Trent, I'd been coaching my half-brother for 6 years. So this became all of a sudden quite complicated. You're thinking to yourself, oh, it's okay, he's okay, and you're thinking about the health, and it's like, this kid, I know this kid. This is like a kid who's been to our house. He'd come to our house, and so this is all of a sudden. So I said, have you got any other sons? She said, yes, got 2 other boys, and so Ryan and Ben. We started talking a bit more, and I said, well, I suppose I better go and meet my dad. And she said, I'll talk to them. They spoke to their boys, and it's been a great journey. You know, that side has been really very positive.
So golf was...
But I should mention, sorry, Pete, the young guy who I coached, Trent, he is now a professional golfer as well. And he heads up a club in in Singapore called Sentosa Island. He's over there, and as a professional golfer over there. So there might be some golfing genes, and I've got my boy who's not here today. Our middle fella Curtis is also becoming a professional golfer at the same time. So maybe golf is a bit.
So who's
close.
better, you or Trent?
Look, Simone says Curtis.
Oh, Curtis, good answer, Mum. Yeah.
Look, we were both okay. I'd say that's probably fair to say. But it was, an amazing story, and one that you think, through your life of faith and your journey, you think, how does these things happen? But it's real, and there'll be more stories like this that occur. But it's important to share these stories because I think whatever happens in life, you've got to, for me, is to be thankful for what it is. There's no hardness there. There's no, because you can't change what's happened. You simply can't. And as I said, I've got gratitude and great love for everything I've had and everything I've got. So I think that's, try to approach that with golf as well. So and even my work at Southern Cross, that's what I try to bring to my life and our life.
Sure. That decision to decide that golf was no longer tough?
That was a toughie, because I was the head professional golf club in Melbourne called Yarra Yarra. I was, been the head professional there for just over 5 years. I was asked if I was interested in becoming an Australian coach at the time, and I'd always studied. Simone knows what I'm like. I've always left school early. You've got to think I left school in year 11. Because the tech schools only went to year 11 and you sort of find your way. And I had a love for learning. It's probably my other thing I just love. And I started going to night school, started with TAFE, ended up doing other things like MBAs and other. And there was a member there at Yarra Yarra where I was the professional at, and his name was Brian Dorman. And Brian said to me, he said, would you like to take us on the directors and I on a trip to Ireland, which organised, and we took a group over there. And as I came back, he said, you should come and work for us. And I said to him, Brian, I'm a golf professional. I said, I've got a few skills. I'm doing an MBA, and I was doing an MEI at the time, which is a Masters in Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I was very interested in that space. And he said, no, come and work for us. And it was at the moment, and I thought, the reason I would do that, I remember my old boss, Brian Simpson, saying, I said to Brian, I said, do you have any regrets? And he said, the only thing I would say, Jason, he said, being a club professional was hard. You'd work Saturdays, Sundays, it's busy days. Imagine being a parish priest, it's your time's not always yours. And so I made the choice at that point to say, look, I'll give this a go. And I joined an aged care group at the time called Regis. It's the only listed aged care organisation in Australia. When I first started, we had about 800 beds, and in the 6 years I was there, I think we went to about 5,000. And I was lucky to have opportunities. I was good at certain things, and they said come to Queensland, and I moved to Queensland in 2004 with Simone and 3 boys, and the journey started from there. And if you could piece a few things together like Sister Kate, then you end up at St Vincent's, good people like that. But it was always a wonderful opportunity, and I love aged care. What I love most about aged care and the opportunities that we have is to care for those who have cared for us. I think it's such noble work, teaching, nursing, care. It's so worthwhile, and I love the ethos of the not-for-profit sector. I've spent time, as you said, at Regis, and even organisations like Aveo. Are all good places, but there's something that is very special about organisations like Southern Cross Care, where they're born out of a real mission to serve. The Sisters of Charity, their mission, their charism, the Knights, what they were about. There's something genuine that is so worthwhile. So I sort of advocate a lot and do a lot of work in that space for Southern Cross Care, our organisation, where I am now.
Sure. There's a few people in the room, including myself, starting to think about aged care. So they're not looking at anyone in particular. The Archbishop's retiring in far down the track. Talk to us about the sector, where it's at, what you would see as the challenges and what you see as the way forward.
It's a good question. think if you could break it up into two parts, I think Australia's unique because of its size. I think it's tricky. You've got rural and remote, so we should put that as one part and think about what does the bush look like, and then you've got metro. And I think I think that those two things have got their own challenges, and I think that they're quite different. But I think the sector itself is it's in a time, I think, of flux. There's been great change. There's legislative changes happening with the new Aged Care Act coming out. There's a thing called the task force. For those who've been watching, you'd understand this and how it's going to be funded. I think workforce has to be at the heart of it. Workforce. Peter, in your role, and all the leaders in this room, workforce would be one of the hardest, I think. And it's really how do we inspire, young people to come and join our sector and the work that we do. Because it's so worthwhile. Workforce has got to be one of the biggest issues.
So while I've got you, talking about workforce, what do you think is needed to attract people to the sector? Having said that, there's only a limited workforce in this country at the moment, or everybody's trying to grab them, particularly the care workers. What sets aged care apart? It's
a good question. Look, maybe I could talk to an example of what we're doing in a community called Chinchilla. For those who know Chinchilla, it's 3.5 hours from here. And if we went to Chinchilla today, one of the things Southern Cross Care's done is we've focused on the idea of partnerships. I think you've got to look at how you partner. So we partner with a group up there called Southern Queensland Rural Health, and it's an education entity that comes out of the University of Queensland and Southern Cross University, and we've built an education hub there. So the education hub is training nurses, it is training OTs, psychologists, and it's a place where people can come and be trained and then get great experiences within aged care. I think it's got to come down to how do we create great experiences for those to stay, and also great cultures where people feel like they are listened to, they can make a difference, they can grow within these roles, they feel like they're serving something, community and something bigger than themselves. I think there's a great connection to serve. And I think if we can do that well, I think we can inspire a young workforce, retain the great workforce we've got there. But I also think we need to think about staying longer in the workforce. I think it's going to be an interesting one, and how do we do that as well? I think there's a number of, scenarios that are being played out and considered. But I think to be paid well for the work you do is also important, and the government's done a number of steps. We've had the 15% through the Fair Work Commission that's made a difference, and there's talk of the other 28% at the moment, which is in Fair Work. And again, how does this get funded, and how does it get to the right people? The frontline workers of our homes and our communities, our home care, all the work that we do are incredibly good people. We've got 1,200 staff that do amazing work, 24/7, caring for the most vulnerable in our communities. And then I think it's broader to other parts of our health sector as well, which we could maybe explore.
Okay. So you speak very passionately about aged care. How much of it is faith-driven? You've touched on the importance of faith in terms of the service delivery that we provide across the numerous Catholic sectors in aged care, disability, health, even education. What's that one thing that you think says something different about a Catholic service?
It's the pastoral care, if I could say that. I think the pastoral piece of it, the human part of it. Mike Hart, who heads up our people on mission there. John Manu. It's the pastoral piece. Caring is it clinical or is it more human? Is it more Florence Nightingale versus the clinical model? I think there's some interesting conversations that we should always explore on that. I think there's something deeply human about Catholic organisations because of the pastoral approach. And we do that through a number of different lenses. We've got a customer insights team. We get on the phone and we talk to people, we listen to people because there's a need to understand what your lived experience is like with us. And we have an obligation to think about the lived experience of somebody. We talk about a good death. What does that look like? And if I could say anything to anybody in this room, if there's a book you should possibly read, I would recommend, and is Being Mortal by Adal Grande. It's one of the most magnificent books ever written about what matters in the end. And it explores, palliative care through a whole new lens. And I think we've got to be really, conscious of that, because that's where we are. Aged care does get to that point, and I think the humanity and love that is needed is so important. But some of the sad things, Peter, that we deal with is, the residents who have no families, where we do step in, and the great work that happens, where we put our arms around the staff that do the work, again, are angels. They are amazing. And that's why I'm passionate about what we do is that we do make a difference to the end. And I think that's, against things like VAD, which we won't go down, but the palliative care piece is so important. And as Catholic organisations, we should be absolutely true and passionate about that.
And before I open it up to questions, palliative care is being neglected. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think there's some great effort. I think St Vincent's, and one of our directors is Dr. Philip Good, who does some amazing work. I think it's understanding and getting it out there, because the conversation's hard. Nobody wants to talk about dying. It's a difficult one. And I say if you can't think about dying, you can't always have a good life either. They almost go hand in glove. And I think we've got to, have more honest conversations about what that looks like. But I think palliative care could be done better. I agree. And I know as an organisation, it's one of our key priorities. Through our board, a number of our directors and chair are here today. I know how passionate they are about it. So it does take people. Passion's good, but you still need skills and you need training. You need the right environments for this to happen as well. So it's a complicated one, but a worthwhile endeavour.
Okay.
Could you thank Jason for sharing his story, but the passion and resilience and character he shows, and just for being a wonderful family man. Very pleased.